I just watched that last one. That guy was definitely covering his ass. I don't know anything. I don't.
Good morning. First, I want to welcome everyone to today's State 911 Advisory Board. I want to introduce myself. My name is David Neal. I'm the Chief Counsel at Cal OES, and I'm here just at the outset to discuss, what we'll be doing initially this morning, and that is, some of you may know, due to Mr. Courier's recent departure, that there is no current chair. And so we obviously wanted to really make sure it was very, very important for us to ensure that this meeting moved forward today. And so with that, once we take roll and establish quorum, and it looks like we will have quorum established, which is good, that then we will, I will need to ask the board to nominate someone to serve as chairperson facilitator for purposes of our meeting today. And then once the board approves that, then we can shift over. I am here to provide advice and counsel. Think of it as an air traffic controller. I'm here to provide whatever assistance you may need just as we move the meeting along. But as again, I just can't emphasize enough that we just really wanted to ensure that today's meeting went forward. And so with that, I should also state that next to me, I think you all know Mr. Troxel, Paul Troxel. Paul will also be here today as well. And so with that, I'm hopeful that we will be able to have a very fruitful meeting and discussion. And so with that, I will defer to Paul if we can have roll taken.
Thank you, David. All right. Rodney Ellison, representing the California Highway Patrol. Yep, just walked into the room. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you attending today. Kurt Wallace, representing Association of Public Safety Communications Officials.
Here.
Jennifer Gonzalez, representing the California Police Chiefs.
Here.
Andrew White, representing California Police Chiefs.
Present.
Yesenia Sanchez, representing the California State Sheriff's Association.
Present.
And note for the minutes, Sheriff Sanchez is remote. Thank you. Robert Johnson, representing California State Sheriff's Association.
Present.
Ametria Sidney, representing the California chapter of the National Emergency Number Association. Mark Chase, representing the California chapter of the National Emergency Number Association.
Present.
Garrett Huff, representing California Fire Chiefs Association.
Present.
Rebecca Ramirez, representing California Fire Chiefs Association.
Present.
Thank you, David. Quorum has been achieved.
Wonderful. And so with that, is there a motion to nominate anyone to serve as our facilitator, chairperson for today's meeting?
I'll nominate Paul Truxell.
It needs to be a member of the board. I should have clarified that. Do you withdraw that motion?
Just confirm he's a member of the board.
No.
I'd like to nominate Chief White.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we take a vote?
So we'll conduct a roll call vote. Rodney Ellison for the nomination of Chief White to chair today's 911 Advisory Board. Kurt Wallace.
I concur.
Jennifer Gonzalez.
I concur.
Chief White.
Concur.
Yesenia Sanchez.
Concur.
Robert Johnson.
Concur.
Mark Chase.
Concur.
Garrett Huff.
Concur.
Rebecca Ramirez.
Concur.
The motion has passed.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, board, and thank you, Chief White. It's very much appreciated.
Okay, for the
Yes.
next item, we'll have the approval of the previous meeting minutes. Those were distributed out by email to the board members. Are there any questions?
This is a script, goes through everything, and then we need to.
Okay.
Correction.
Go ahead with the correction.
It indicates that I was present in the August meeting, and I was not, so that needs to be corrected.
Are there any other corrections or comments? Is there a motion to approve with the corrections stated?
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Wallace. Second.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Chase. We'll do a roll call vote. Chief Ellison,
I concur.
Mr. Wallace,
I approve.
Chief Gonzalez,
Abstain, absent.
Sheriff Sanchez,
Abstain, absent.
Sheriff Johnson,
Abstain, absent.
Mr. Sidney, absent. Mr. Chase,
Approve.
Garrett Huff.
Abstain, new member.
Okay. And Chief Ramirez.
Approve.
All right, the minutes are approved with the changes. The next item will be a closed session. There's an opportunity for the board to meet in closed session to discuss any recent 911 outages pursuant to Government Code Section 11126, subsection C, subsection 18, subsection A, security. Is there anybody that would like to meet in closed session?
Sorry.
Okay.
I would.
So we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion seconded. Go through roll call vote. I'm just going to call last names for interest of time. Ellison?
Aye.
Wallace,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sanchez,
Aye.
Johnson, Chase,
Aye.
Huff, and Ramirez.
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, the board will move into closed session. Link, if you'll disconnect from this meeting and rejoin at the other link, you'll be linked up with the board members that are in person that will be moving to another room for the closed session discussion.
Not a mayonnaise. And the officer and I are like, these people that are doing like filters on every picture they post. And then you see them and you're like, who's that?
present. Can we confirm that the sheriff is online?
Two AWS data centers. I don't know the physical location. There's one east of the Mississippi and one west of it.
Can we confirm that Sheriff Sanchez is back on in this meeting?
I'm online.
Perfect, thank you. So at this time, we resume back to regular session from closed session. The board did give direction, and I'll turn it over to Chief Legal Counsel to report out on that.
Apologies. The board has directed that another meeting will be set prior to the already scheduled February 2025 meeting to address, so that Cal OES may present and provide an analysis of any security impacts or implications related to recent concerns brought to the 911 Advisory Board's attention regarding the NGA 911 system, and also for a presentation regarding the deployment status of agencies currently receiving I3 direct calls.
Thank you. The next item is the legislative update. In the interest of time, we're going to push that to the end. We'll move on to the next item, which is the California 911 branch report, and we'll have Mr. Mattson will be presenting this item.
All right, good morning. My name is Andrew Mattson, Program Management Division Chief, 911 branch. Shall we get started? Today we'll be talking about 911 outage data. As usual, we'll talk through 911 statistics for 2023 or 2024. We will talk through our next-gen 911 deployment update as it stands today, statewide cloud call handling, and the status of the SETNA fund. All right, so starting off with the outage minutes, I wanted to really point out that we are changing our outage reporting going forward. This is something that we talked about in the branch for a while, and something that we feel is very important to communicate to the board, that community isolations, for those who may not be familiar with that term, community isolations are going to be reported a little bit differently going forward. Now, in the 911 world, those of us who are familiar with the technology understand that a 911 outage and a community isolation are two different things. Community isolation is when you cannot get dial tone. You cannot reach the 911 system. So, for instance, if there's a wildfire and an end office or central office in your area burns up and you have no dial tone on your phone, or a cell phone tower doesn't work, you can't get into the 911 system. This is a problem that will persist with NextGen. Regardless of what type of 911 network we put in, community isolations will still occur. So we want to be very clear about that, and we want to report those numbers out separately. We had not done that in the past. So for July, we had 105,000 minutes, August, 23,000 minutes, and September, 33,000 minutes. Of course, these are reported in aggregate, statewide. And we'll move on to individual portions of the network. But I want to make sure everybody is clear on this figure here. Right. All right, so for legacy service disruption for last quarter, July for the 911 network, legacy network, we had 31,000 minutes. August was 33,000, September was 13,000. CPE outages, July we had 7,300 minutes, August we reported 0 minutes, and September 114 minutes. Mind you, these are service impacting outages. For location, for alley circuits, for those that remain on the legacy alley circuit, legacy alley network, in July, we had 5,500 minutes, August 4,300, and September 912. Moving forward to the next-gen network, outages reported there. For aggregation, for July, August, September, we reported 0 minutes. We saw 0 minutes reported from our vendors. For core outages, we had 87 minutes in July, none reported in August and September. For alley, for next-gen location, for July, we had 15,000 minutes. August, 797 minutes, and September, 0 minutes. For transport, for next-gen EZNet outages, 0 for July, 0 for August, and 28 minutes reported to us in September from our vendors. And then lastly, second to lastly, cloud CPE outages, 355 minutes reported in July, 720 in August, 704 in September. And then text to 911, we have reported 533 minutes in July, 339 in August, and 149 in September. Any questions on outage numbers as reported?
Question about July. It seems to have spiked in a variety of.
Primarily the location outages? Yeah, our understanding is we had some issues with, what was it, Paul? Beth had reported out, it was one outage that caused that many minutes. It was one PSAP that had a location outage for, I think it was a few weeks. Important to note for location outages, we only count them as service impacting if the PSAP elects to not reroute their calls. So many PSAPs will have an alley outage in Legacy or NextGen, and they'll elect to continue taking those calls. That is a choice that the PSAP gets to make. If they elect to reroute those calls, we consider that to be service impacting, enough so that the PSAP has chosen to send those calls somewhere else, and it's reported here. So if a PSAP is down, right, or has, a location outage, and they've sent those calls somewhere else, and it's for several weeks, that'll result in a number such as you see there. Yeah.
Can you confirm on the cloud CPE outage? So is that a center that has a cloud CPE solution, and then they were unable to take any calls?
I can confirm that is a center that has a cloud CPE solution, yes. As far as hard down versus, perhaps a failure that is service impacting, but not necessarily, hard down, right, not able to receive calls, period. That information we'd have to probably dig up for you, Mark. I don't have that on hand. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you confirm that these slides talking about outages don't capture centers that may have degraded service or may be experiencing anomalies, such as answering 911 calls and the caller is not on the line?
If the PSAP has reported that issue, Chief, the vendor is required to report to us. If it's a service degradation that is applicable to an SLA in our contract, then it's reported here, yes.
So if a center has issues, for example, transferring calls, and they experience repeated issues with that, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, that's not going to show up necessarily on these slides. In other words, these slides are more respective of more complete outages as opposed to ongoing day-to-day operational issues.
I would say that's correct. Paul, would you concur?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. This will be the last time we see these statistics for the year. We like to put these up at every meeting, as some of our more tenured board members know. We like to make sure that the stats stay up here for public record. Next year for the February meeting, we will have 2024's numbers for everyone. These numbers have remained unchanged. The current trends we've talked about through the year, we continue to see a rise in wireless calls. Slowly now, the bulk of the traffic is obviously wireless, and that's stayed steady for many years now. Wireline continues to decline very, very slowly. We're at 5% now. We anticipate that number will level off, and it will stay steady at some point. We don't know what that number is, certainly, but there are portions of California that don't have sufficient cell coverage that will probably never abandon their landlines, is the anticipation there. Voice over IP continues to go up very, very slowly. It looks like we had a little dip in 2023, but it still remains 6% of our call volume. And then telematics and text have leveled off as well, as far as we have seen. So we haven't seen a great increase in number for telematics or text. So for the NextGen 911 deployment update, right now we're still working with our contracted vendor that we have hired, Promethean One, with the help of 911 Authority to assist us in gathering data. Right now we are doing a full network assessment. We have put all testing on hold. We have not migrated any PSAPs at this point. Our last wireless migration was September the 4th. And testing has been put on hold since then. We have not migrated any PSAPs recently here. We have 22 PSAPs still live today taking I3 calls. We have 10 able to take transfers, right? Our secondaries, our fire and EMS centers that are taking transfers from those 22 PSAPs. That number has not changed a lot this year, right? We have, I think at the start of the year, we had 18. So migrations have moved very slowly this year, and right now we're on hold. Pending further analysis. Any questions?
Actually, Andrew, I apologize, Bob Johnson, a new member, but looking at this number, just so I understand what you just said, 22 PSAPs taking I3 out of the 440 plus PSAPs throughout the state.
That is correct.
Last year it was 18, so we've increased 4 in a year.
Yes, sir.
So is there a projection, I'm just curious, of when there's an anticipation that we'll get to the 440?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay.
We're working through our network analysis, and once we've made some determination of where the system stands and what our path forward needs to be, we will create new timelines, and we will have those ready for you shortly. Yeah. All right.
I have a couple of questions. Of the current vendors, how are they being held accountable for meeting performance standards, and what penalties are in place?
So for NextGen 911 network, is that what you're asking
Yeah,
for?
we'll start with network, and then we can talk about cloud CPE, but network right now.
Okay. Paul, would you like to talk through the transition? Give me 1 second.
And just to be clear, I'm not asking on specific penalties for specific vendors. I think the public and new members of the board and existing have an interest in understanding how OES is not delivering this network, they're overseeing it. So how are we holding the vendors accountable? If you can explain how that process works and if there's been any recent changes with regards to that.
Chief, that's a very good question. And I would respond from the branch perspective, when we, the 911 branch team, receive information either from the PSAP or from the vendor doing self-reporting, which they're required to do a self-report outage. We work with David, our chief legal's team, to assess where a service level agreement or contract requirement may have been violated. And if that is validated that there is violation of those requirements, then with the assistance of chief legal, we have a letter drafted and then sent to the appropriate vendor on those requirements.
As I understand it, I may be wrong, that several of the contracts have transitioned into tariff-based services. Is that accurate?
For the NextGen 911 contracts, that is accurate.
So do we currently have a process in place for performance auditing of those tariff services? In other words, to ensure that they're delivering the services as promised?
That's work that we're working with David's team on now, is to evaluate the approved tariffs. The vendors were required to submit through the California Public Utilities Commission their tariff. Those have been filed. All of those have been provided to legal for analysis to determine.
Just getting a little bit into privilege.
Yeah, that's being evaluated, yes.
Do you have an approximate timeline on when that process may be worked out? One of the concerns is obviously ensuring that they are meeting the performance requirements. So are we talking months out, 6 months out, a year out?
Turn that on. Absolutely. This is one of our highest priorities right now, is evaluating this and looking at what those options look like, so we can make sure we have every tool that we have possible available, and so that we can get the responses that we are needing from vendors so we can move forward.
Thank you. I've had communications with at least 2 of the dispatch centers that have been experiencing issues recently, and in my opinion, the time to resolve the issues hasn't been acceptable. Are there steps that Cal OES is taking in light of the experience with these first centers, both deploying the core network but also cloud CPE, to shorten that time and ensure that all tickets are appropriately answered? If you could talk to that generally.
I would say that's the current collaboration that we're doing with Cal OES Chief Legal and his team. We are communicating on a regular basis. Anything that our team identifies gets shared with Chief Legal and his team, and then we receive feedback and direction moving forward.
At the upcoming special meeting that we've asked for, is that something that you'll be able to dig into more detail to explain to us what steps to try to reduce that and ensure that all dispatcher concerns are being addressed in the best way possible?
We will be able to support how that work is done in timelines, expected timelines and turnarounds at that meeting.
Thank you. Are there other board questions? I think my last one is, can you explain just briefly what the current management structure is of the rollout of NG 911? In other words, who's ultimately in charge and who's been in charge in the last, say, 2 years?
So I was promoted to the 911 branch manager position end of June of last year. I have been assigned our assistant director. As you know, Budge Courier was promoted about December 22, I believe, was his promotion, that his branch manager position vacated, and I was appointed into the branch manager position in June of 23. And I'm currently the 911 branch manager and in charge of this project.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Cloud-based call handling. As we updated at our last meeting, all vendors that plan to process their equipment through the lab and validate through the lab have done so. We have had some recent developments in the deployment of text to 911 as a direct interface through call handling with our partners at NGA. So currently their call handling is not approved for sale through the Cal OES contract, but we're working with them diligently to get that fixed. All other vendors remain able to sell, and we are currently working with PSAPs to make sure that they get the approvals for funding that they need to get new call handling upgraded.
Are there any systems listed on there that aren't currently allowed to be sold in California?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Under the contract, they're all authorized for sale currently in deployment?
Correct, yes. Every vendor that was on the contract that did not supply a solution for us to validate in the lab has not been extended. So those contracts are no longer valid for those vendors.
So no sales have been suspended on any of the systems?
Just a point of clarification, Chief. As Andrew had articulated, the team has identified some challenges with the delivery of text to 911 using the NGA platform. We currently have them back in the NG 911 lab revalidating that service. Our technology team and engineering team is working with NGA, and Atos. Atos delivers text through the NGA platform. They have currently been decertified for sale pending revalidation in the lab, to clarify your question.
And is that something that the public could access online to see what those lists are, and particularly dispatch centers?
We have not removed the contracts from online. We had all contracts posted as a matter of public record online. Our PSAP Advisory and Compliance Unit, Jade Borowski and her team are the interface for those. So if PSAPs had questions about the CPE solutions available, they would reach out to that team, and they would be able to direct them with who is and who is not available currently today for sale.
So if anyone was temporarily suspended for sales pending retesting or whatnot, that information isn't currently posted. They would have to come ask or watch a meeting.
Yes, and as my understanding, those PSAPs who have been engaged in the contracting process have been updated on the current stop clock that NGA has in place pending this revalidation. But any other PSAP who's not engaged in the process, they would still need to contact the PSAP advisory team.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Paul. I did not do that.
Uh-oh.
1 second, please.
We're experiencing a technical glitch. It'll be just 1 second for us to pull the slides back up.
Question for legal counsel. In the interest of time, could we pause now and allow for public comment regarding this at this phase? Okay. Is anybody opposed to allowing that while they're getting that restarted, we can open it up to the public to keep things going? Is that okay? See nobody opposed. We'll invite any public comment at this time. If you could raise your hand for the persons that are in the room, and then we'll move to the online. So any questions from the public? Go ahead. And if you could come to the microphone and turn it on, press the button.
Good morning. My name is Candace Nguyen. I'm with NBC Bay Area. I have a question for all the board members mainly who've been here for a while. Were board members made aware of serious public safety concerns from Cal OES before our reports last year? Sorry, let me repeat that, not last year. Were board members made aware of serious public safety concerns from Cal OES before our news reports last week?
It's not an opportunity to ask questions of the board. So if there's a comment you would like to make, please do so, and we certainly invite that.
Okay. In past board meetings, when I've asked about this, I've asked Budge questions about a certain agenda item, and this was just the agenda item that just occurred, are we in the middle of? And in those moments, Budge did answer questions about something that was on the, is that not, is not a possibility?
As I just stated earlier, it's an opportunity for any member of the public to add comments. So if you have a comment you would like to make, please do so. And I know you can always reach out separately. But I just, in the interest of time as well, since we want to make sure every member of the public has as the notice provides, the agenda item says 3 minutes limited to each individual. So.
And I'm wondering, during this agenda item that we're currently on, will there be an opportunity at the end for the members of the public to ask questions to the board about the agenda item?
Yeah, they can certainly ask him, and in this context, if we're not able to provide that answer, we can take that back and certainly do the research to make sure we have the best information available.
I'll wait to ask my questions during that time period at the end of this agenda item instead of public comment.
Well, I don't think that's what I just said. I think that what I understood your question to be is if you would like, if anyone else wanted to ask questions, and certainly you can. I just want to make sure that if there are other members here who just have a comment they want to make, that they have that opportunity to do so.
Does anyone else have a comment? I can go later.
Is there anyone online?
We'll move to online. If you're online, if you could, I believe, press the raised hand feature, and then we'll call upon you. Again, if you're online, this is public comment for the update on the deployment of the Next Gen 911 system. Are there any hands raised? So if you've put comments in the chat, we can't see those comments or respond to those. So if you'd like to state it, now's your opportunity. Press the raised hand feature, and then we'll call upon you for public comment. Are there any hands that have raised? So they'll unmute you if you could state your name and then proceed with your comment. Lysick Esther, you're clear to proceed with your comment.
Good afternoon. I'm just curious as to what the state is doing with all of the contracts that have already been signed with NGA. There are several agencies that have signed with NGA, and if they're being decertified, what should we look for?
Can legal counsel clarify the terminology, because I don't believe it's decertified, it's temporarily suspended. Can you clarify?
Well, I was just asking, I was just asking Mr. Troxel to explain, because I think this relates to the comment he made earlier, so.
Please proceed, Mr. Troxel.
Yeah, thank you. So specific to NGA's call handling system, they are not decertified for sales as a contract holder. They're decertified in sales pending revalidation of their technology in the lab. That work is currently going on, and if a PSAP has entered into a sales agreement specific with NGA in their call handling solution, please reach out to your PSAP advisor, and we can work with you offline with updates on where they are in the lab and recertification and what options you may have as a PSAP. But the contract, as it stands today, the contract is not voided, invalidated, canceled, or anything. They're still on contract. They're still providing that solution that's just going through lab validation again.
And to clarify, you are communicating with any agencies that are currently in procurement process regarding the challenges that are currently being looked at?
We're letting them know the status of NGA's lab certification, yes.
Thank you. Next comment?
And I'm
I
happy
can't
to
see
go
you
as
all the way over there, so I apologize. No more online, so we'll go back to the room.
Yeah, I'm happy to ask my questions, whether they're able to be answered or not. Again, my name is Candace Wen. I'm with NBC Bay Area, and my question is, in my comment, were board members here aware of serious public safety concerns from Cal OES before our news reports last week?
So we'll open up to, if anybody on the board wants to comment, now's the time.
And if not, is that a problem?
I think I'd like to comment.
Go ahead, Chief Ramirez.
Yeah, I think, speaking for myself, I think it caused me to go back and communicate with some of our dispatch centers and get some more information for myself. I feel like there hasn't been enough information on the totality of the system and how it's working that I'd like to hear more of. I think that's the purpose, one of the purposes of our special meeting going forward. So I'm really looking forward to a lot of transparency in that meeting, a lot of clarity for our board so that we can make effective decisions with all the information for the state of California as it relates to 911 services going forward.
Thank you. Chief?
I would concur with Chief Ramirez that we've got probably questions that will be answered at the next report. So I too am looking forward to it and not waiting for a regularly scheduled quarterly meeting.
I also have a comment, but it'll be at the end of this. Are there any other comments from the board?
Yes, I'd like to
Mr.
make
Chase, go ahead.
a statement. Colleen is the voice of over 8,000 public safety dispatchers at both the state and local level, including those with law enforcement, fire, EMS, and other public safety operations. Our career professionals answer over 27 million 911 calls annually. We are dedicated to making 911 and public safety communications work better. We measure our success in the lives that are saved by the 911 system every day. And Cal Nina advocates for an improved emergency telephone number network through research, planning, training, and education, and strives towards citizens having immediate access to emergency public safety services so that safety of human life, protection of property, and civic welfare are benefited to the utmost degree. We wish to express our concerns about the recent reports of difficulty with the rollout of the NextGen 911 project thus far. As working 911 dispatchers, our greatest concern is to be able to assist those in need professionally and in a timely manner. As a dispatcher, the reports of multiple agencies joining the same 911 call or calls dropping are upsetting and stress-inducing. It also results in a delay of response. The public should not be subject to the technical failures of this project, and we should be doing everything we can in the short term to minimize these disruptions. The public safety cannot be compromised. That being said, we reemphasize our belief that Next Generation 911 must be implemented in California and across the nation. California urgently needs the benefits that are moving to Next Gen 911 will deliver. The current 1970s infrastructure that underpins our existing call processing systems is aging and unreliable. As our state experiences increasing rates of natural disasters, such as floods, earthquakes, and fires, among all the other reasons citizens call 911, 911 PSAPs need the technical solutions that NextGen 911 will deliver so that calls are answered and serviced in the event of 911 center outages or evacuations. We believe that the staff of Cal OES 911 branch have the proper personnel and invested leaders in place to address these issues. Our suggestion is to dedicate whatever resources are necessary to vet and approve the updated version of NGA's CPE software and to get that implemented as quickly as possible. Then all resources should be dedicated to resolving the issues of the existing PSAPs before moving forward with any new implementation. As the staff makes progress, regular updates should be made to this body and to the PSAP community. Transparency with the public is paramount moving forward. At the beginning of this project, an incorrect premise was made that NextGen 911 was going to be an easy project to scale, and that once a few regional centers were up and running on the network, then it would be a natural transition to bring up other centers in the region with few issues. At this time, we must admit to ourselves that there were unanticipated or unaccounted factors, but this is not a reason to stop pressing forward. California needs Next Generation 911. Cal Nina encourages the Cal OES branch to reset realistic expectations and timelines, commit to transparency, and engage us as willing partners. We stand ready to help.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Any other board members? Do you have any other comment?
Two comment questions that I'll just fire off for the sake of time. My first question is the PSAP that caused the most of the 911 outages in February 2024 that was shown a few slides ago, which PSAP is that? And then my second question is, in April 2022, the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office reported a major NextGen NGA failure where callers said they were not able to call into 911 for roughly 12 hours. I checked with NGA about that. They acknowledged that outage with me. I also looked at meeting minutes for the State 911 Advisory Board meeting for the following month in May and saw that there was no mention of that major outage. Why is that? And is that also a problem?
What I can say is we appreciate the question and just know that as was reflected in the next meeting that's happening, that we are making it a priority to identify any such concerns and to be able to determine, make sure they are properly addressed and that the program is strong.
Are there any other comments, or Mr. Troxel, did you want to state anything about that?
No, thank you.
Any other comment?
That's it. If there was an answer to the first question about which PSAP it was that that was mentioned in the February 2024.
Yeah, and unfortunately this time, just because of potential security issues, we cannot, but certainly depending upon how that is analyzed and addressed, we can reassess, but I think unfortunately no, not this time.
Thank you.
I think to add clarity from the board, one thing that we are looking at is opportunity to make sure that we're as clear and transparent as possible with the public and the dispatcher community regarding the outages, with the understanding that there are some limitations on disclosing specific issues at specific agencies. But I believe that the board as a whole is definitely asking those questions internally in the proper forum. All right, Mr. Mattson, it looks like the PowerPoint is back up, so we'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. All right, moving forward on statewide call handling installation for system acceptances for 2024, we have not had any system sign off yet. We're still working through the 2 live systems that we have for NGA. We've put systems in at Desert Hot Springs and at Wasco. Desert Hot Springs is reflected up there as a system that was installed in 2023. Wasco has not yet officially signed off on that system yet. They're still working through their issues that they're experiencing on site. So right now we have a team that's up to staff and ready to perform this work, but we need our call handling to be ready to deploy effectively.
Sorry, can you explain very briefly what system acceptance means? If you're saying the one in there from 2023 represents an acceptance, does that mean that there's no issues or it's crossed a certain threshold?
Not necessarily. So we like there to be no issues. Obviously, that's the goal. If there are issues, generally, we hope to have minor issues documented at time of system acceptance. What that means is the PSAP has experienced 240 consecutive hours of trouble-free operation. They're signing off saying that we are taking acceptance of the system as is or not as is. If there's work needed to be done, they're acknowledging that the vendor has to continue to work with them on any issues that remain. It starts their clock for funding moving forward, right? We're on a 5-year funding cycle that we try to get PSAPs upgraded every 5 years. So that system acceptance is the indicator of the start of that 5 years. That's why it's very important for us. We want to keep these systems moving, and replaced in a regular interval.
When an agency receives a new system and is installed, is Cal OES supportive in them in terms of if they run into issues and they don't want to sign system acceptance? Do you help them navigate through that process? Obviously, I'm sure there's legal concerns, but do you help them navigate that?
Absolutely. We have a staff that works with the PSAPs individually, weekly calls, bi-weekly calls, whatever the PSAP needs to work with the vendor to work through those problems and to fix those issues, we support.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, so this slide is, we bring this up every quarter as well. This is a big concern to the 911 branch. This is the number of PSAPs in the state of California that are past year 6 on maintenance on their current call handling and their legacy call handling system. As you can see, that number is now 258 total agencies that have systems 6 years or older. Obviously, this is a great concern to our office. It's one of our top priorities to get these systems changed out. As I just mentioned, we don't generally want to go past year 5 if we don't have to. We have a program in place to replace those systems. Right now, we're in a state where we have a lot of PSAPs on aging call handling that we are really working with to try and get them to swap out. Some of the delays that we've talked about, right? Obviously here today, the issues that we see at PSAPs that are live, those issues are known to other PSAPs and to, they are shared. So there are concerns out there, and some PSAPs have been hesitant to change out their systems. There's a fear of going to the cloud, right? We've been an on-prem, we call it, on-premise type of operation for many, many, many years. So a lot of PSAPs have had some hesitation in adopting cloud technology. We're trying to work through that. Our connectivity issues that are well documented through past presentations and past meetings here kept us from getting wide adoption of call handling for a number of months and up into the last year. We're working through all those to try and get this number turned around as rapidly as possible.
Yeah, again, Andrew, I apologize. This may be covered in a future slide. I'm just curious again on these numbers. Is there a correlation between, for example, the amount of agencies or PSAPs at year 10, year 11, a correlation between those PSAPs and the amount of minutes and outages and disruptions there are?
I would say there is probably some correlation there. The location outages are network and trunk outages are network, right? CPE, call handling outages, would be reflected here primarily in older systems, I would imagine, yes. But it's important to delineate the two, right? Call handling versus network.
Chief Gonzalez.
A couple different times we've mentioned roughly 440 PSAPs. Off the top of your head, is there a chance that you know the actual number, just so we can give a factual number?
I believe it's 442 right now.
Sorry, I don't mean to pop
438?
quiz you on the spot. I'm just, for factual and for reference.
we had a
to
few changes. We have our-
258 of them are
Yeah.
in this predicament.
We have our newest PSAP present today, actually, right? 438 is what I was just told.
438.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For the record, we constantly have PSAPs joining, new PSAP being identified. We had that in Desert Hot Springs and in Wasco. Then we have PSAPs who come in and they say, we're closing. They're consolidating or regionalizing. So this number is constantly in flux for the branch tracking and literally can change month by month. So
I understand it's
yeah.
fluid. I just didn't know if we had it off the top of your head, and it
Yeah.
wasn't a pop quiz. Sorry for that. But just for our knowledge, when we're looking at those numbers. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions on CPE that's end of life? All right. Moving on, fiscal and operational review update. We're at 22 for the year. We are fully staffed in our advisory and compliance unit. We had a long stretch where we did not have staff there and we were having difficulty hiring. We had one person who was holding down the fort. We've staffed up now towards the end of last year. We've got those people trained. And I'll go into the next slide here. It is an important part of our process to do these fiscal and operational reviews. They are rapport building up, a rapport building activity between our office and the PSAP. This is where a lot of one-on-one communication happens. This is where we do a lot of our education and a lot of our outreach from, primarily from the funding side of the house and the call handling side of the house to the PSAPs. Now, it's one of those meetings that it's not a DOJ audit. It's not something that is intense and intimidating. It is designed to be conciliatory. It's designed to be something that the PSAP benefits from and our office benefits from. And so we don't send our new folks out until they've had time in seat, until they're trained up and they understand the environment they're in and the policy that they're executing. So it takes a while to get our folks trained up and ready to do these for us. So we went through last year. We had 22 at the end of the year. We got our staff in, got them trained up, got them ready to go. So we're back on the road regularly now. So we're up to 22 for this year, and they're happening every single month. If any PSAP members or PSAP members in the community listening to this meeting or any board members would like a fiscal and operational review, please reach out. We will be happy to facilitate that for you.
And if I could just add on top of what Andrew stated, this is an opportunity for our team at our PSAP advisory level to get out and speak to the PSAPs, and they hear their concerns. They bring those concerns back to the branch, and then we engage the appropriate branch personnel to develop communication back out to that PSAP or group of PSAPs based on the questions. And they also help share those big events that are coming up, like the CalNINAs, the CalAPCOs. If we're doing town halls or whatever, they share those specific dates so the PSAPs at least hear what's going on and then have the option to come back and participate.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Just for public record, this is on our website. This is the county breakdown. I know nobody can read this slide, but this is the county breakdown for our advisory staff. So if your county, if you see your county listed on here, the staff member is at the top. Contact them. If you have questions about funding, you have questions about your call handling, you want a fiscal and operational review, these are the folks you need to reach out to. They are available anytime to help. They're here to help. And again, this information is online on our website, on our org chart. All right, getting into, I think, our last item, setting a fund condition. We got our fund condition statement for this year was released, Paul, a month ago, I think. Again, impossible to read here. We will dig into the details on the next slide here. The bottom line up front, setting a fee for 2025 will be set at 41 cents. factors that are impacting us for this rate change. The true up, Chief White, you've asked about this a few times over the past, that $180 million that appeared and then disappeared. The Department of Finance put that on our fund condition statement and then took it off, and you asked about that. That money, that fund balance required a BCP to true up the Setna fund. The CAL FIRE Authority, to support their BCP activities, has seemed to have leveled off at about $11 million a year, now that our reserves are, not, they've been, kind of used up over the years. Our reserve has kind of been used up over the years. That money needs to be accounted for going forward, right? That money comes out of the budget. And then Cal OES had authorized authority for BCP activities for the CRIS project, and those had to be accounted for this year.
Can you clarify for the public what BCP is?
Oh, budget change proposal.
And so with that, with the CAL FIRE Authority and the Cal OES Authority, in general, what is that going towards out of Setna?
You want to take this one, Paul?
Yeah. So just to make sure we're all clear, the first BCP budget change proposal, the 911 branch had to submit a true up for state operations based on salary increases, benefits, travel, and the needs of the state operation to support the 911 branch. So that was one BCP that was submitted just to true that up. The second one there, the CAL FIRE, that is supporting their computer-aided dispatch solution and has been in place for approximately 20
years.
About 20 years. And then the last one is the California Radio Interoperable System, or CRISP radio. The overall design was to support the entire ecosystem of 911, caller through public safety, the public safety first responder. So some funding was dedicated to support radio interoperability throughout the state. So those agencies using the California Radio Interoperable System would be able to benefit. So we receive a 911 call. That call gets processed by your local dispatch center, then goes into your local computer-aided dispatch system, can be shared through our data information solution, or California DIS project, can be shared with your regional partners, request mutual aid. Everybody can come on to the California, or the CRIS radio, California Radio Interoperable System, and maintain interoperable communication throughout the entire life cycle of that event.
Any other questions?
All right.
Just one question on the.
Sorry, Mark,
CRIS
go ahead.
funding. Sorry. Initially, I remember the budget change proposal was for 5 years. Is that still the case?
I'd have to go back and look at the BCP. I do not know that answer off the top of my head.
I think it was either 5 or 6, Paul, to my memory. But
I know that we submitted a letter about that. Calina just strongly feels that that should be limited to 5 years. It should be a one-time funding and should not be a continued source of revenue.
So I believe the BCPs, as they're approved, are made available through the Department of Finance website. We can pull that data and have that available to respond at our future meeting. Thank you.
all right. Chief, that concludes the 911 update.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to the
Appreciate it.
board first for follow-up questions or comments. Seeing none online. Are there any comments? Okay, we'll open it up to the room for public comment. If you have a comment, you can step forward. Microphone.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenn Roach. I'm an emergency number professional and an independent contractor. I've been in the business for 39 years. I think it's very important that the board understand, the public and everybody that's listening in, that there is not a technological failure. NG 911 is very important to this nation, and California has done an exemplary movement to further advance 911. Obviously, we don't fully understand what the issues are at this point in time, but we can't let the public go without understanding that the system is very much needed, and it will help support better technology and save lives throughout the California and the rest of the nation. I just wanted to make sure that the board and the rest of the public understood that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? You can come forward.
This is a layup. It's easy. The special meeting that the board's, the advisory board is going to have, is that an open meeting?
There will be a closed session portion for the portions that can only be discussed in closed session, and then there will be an open portion, which should be a more deep dive into the deployment at the agencies that currently are operating with I3 trunks.
Thank you very much.
Hi there, Barb Wynn with NGA 911. I just had 2 points of clarification. One is the uncertification of the NGA, our Nexus Connect. We're happy to work with Cal OES to ensure that our service is being tested the way it needs to be tested. Regarding the over-the-top or the integrated text to 911, we are required to test that again for the second time. We did pass. We were the first to pass 2 years ago. In request to change the way we process that with the other provider. That is why we're on a stop clock, is because they've asked us to change that process, and we are working through that with that other provider. They have a bug in their system, and they've asked us to be patient with them to get that bug worked out so that we can be certified. The reason I'm bringing it up, because there's a lot of questions online, and I want to make sure that it's really clear that we will and continue to work with the state to make sure our system is adequate and where it needs to be. But I just wanted to very much clarify that we were asked to change the process in which we do it. In that change process, we're going through right now, and we will successfully be done with that hopefully in the next few weeks. The second clarification is that it was stated that NGA 911 acknowledged a 12-hour NGA outage. We did not acknowledge an NGA 12-hour outage. We acknowledged a 12-hour legacy network outage. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
So I just invite at the next, the special meeting will be a deeper dive, and I'm sure everybody would like to hear more. So hopefully you'll be able to be there, another representative, so we better understand what's been going on. Any other question or public comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. So I just want to make a brief comment. I think it's important to reflect upon why this board exists. The State 911 Advisory Board was created 21 years ago through Senate Bill 911, following distrust and conflict between the 911 office and local call centers. At the time, state financial decisions were described by the bill proponents as putting call centers, quote, on the brink of disaster. Decision-making processes were not fully communicated, and appeals were limited at the time. This board was formed to restore trust and to ensure that such a crisis never happens again. That situation highlighted the importance of oversight and input from those most affected. This board was designed to ensure that professionals delivering the 911 services are directly involved in shaping decisions about the system. To fulfill that purpose, we must also have a clear understanding of what is happening on the ground. Open communication is critical. Our role is to ensure that the California 911 system is resilient, reliable, and responsive to the needs of our community. As was mentioned before by others, modernizing 911 is essential to meeting the evolving public safety needs, but it can't come at the expense of reliability or trust of the people who call 911 and the dispatchers who rely upon the system to save lives. Dispatchers need to know that concerns about the system will be heard and addressed promptly. We must also work to limit reoccurrences of issues as the system deployment progresses throughout the state. I'm certainly troubled by the lack of communication with the board regarding leadership changes impacting this project. I'm also concerned with information that has been brought forth to this point. However, I also understand this is being looked into by Cal OES, and I think it's important to give time for that to happen. If this board was misled in any way, whether by intentionally, by negligence, by poor communication, or any combination thereof, that needs to come to light. It's not about blame, but it's about getting this project right. Action is what matters now. We've set a special meeting and we've given direction to staff. We can't allow decisions, whether financial, technical, or managerial, to put the 911 system or the people who depend on it most at risk. This board exists to ensure trust, transparency, and communication. We must remain true to that mandate. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which we're going to take out of order, which will be the discussion, or sorry, the presentation regarding virtual PSAP consolidation. And with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Chase.
Do we have the slides?
Yeah, here you
Oh, thank you.
Yours are embedded in for this.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, what, they're next.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. My name is Mark Chase. I'm a business analyst with the city of Palo Alto. I've worked in Palo Alto since 2008, and Chief White had asked for a presentation on some different technological solutions that have been employed. I'm proud to say that Palo Alto, Los Altos, and Mountain View have been virtually consolidated for close to 15 years. Just a little bit of background on our cities. Los Altos is the smallest city in our consortium. It's a population of about 30,000 roughly. They have 1 to 2 dispatchers working per shift, and their 2023 call volume was 19,000 calls in total for 911 and non-emergency. They dispatch just for police only. There we go. The city of Mountain View has a population of about 81,000. They staff between 2 and 4 dispatchers per shift. Their call volume in 2023 was 73,000 calls roughly. Mountain View dispatches for police, fire, and also the Mid-Peninsula Open Space Rangers, which have a wide purview from San Mateo County all the way down to the southern part of Santa Clara County. And then finally, we have the city of Palo Alto. Palo Alto dispatches for Stanford University as well, which is its own jurisdiction. So combined population is 83,000. I would just say for both Mountain View and for Palo Alto, due to the tech sector and the amount of employees that are in town during the day, it's often much higher. Palo Alto Police and Fire Communications staffs 3 to 4 dispatchers per shift, and our 2023 call volume was about 114,000 calls. We dispatch for police, fire. Palo Alto runs their own EMS for Palo Alto and Stanford, as well as city-owned utilities. So the first phase of our project embarked in 2010. It was a common CAD system, and then we followed up with CPE, call processing equipment, or a phone system and radio. Our goals were to improve operational efficiencies, reduce response times, also improved abilities to incorporate new interfaces at the time, county EMS, CupLink, USCD, other systems like that. Ability to integrate and share information, and also dispatch center flexibility as far as cross-training staff, everyone being on one common operating platform. And then it also gives us the opportunity to share resources. We have 1 dedicated GIS specialist for all 3 cities, radio techs as well. We have shared radio responsibilities. All right, this thing is clicking every 3 times. There we go. Okay, so we operate off of 1 common CAD system with 3 geodiverse PSAPs. So each PSAP logs into the same set of servers. We're connected via fiber and microwave. Initially, I believe the plan was to have 2 sets of servers, but then cost became a factor, so we just went down to 1 set of common servers. So our original cost summary in 2010, original proposal was for $3.3 million. After we did some trimming, final cost came to a cost of $2.3 million for CAD interfaces, mobile, $616,000 for an RMS system. So it basically was about $2.9 million before tax, and then an annual CAD maintenance fee of $267,000. So this is the basic cost of the system was about $3 million. The decision was made that each city would pay a fixed 50% of costs, and then 50% would be based upon population. And then for Mountain View and Palo Alto, there were fire-specific costs that Los Altos did not have to accrue. So as you can see, the fixed amount was $483,000 per city, and then based on population was a sliding scale. And then both Mountain View and Palo Alto paid $51,000 in fire-specific costs. So this was the cost out for the system. So I would say lessons learned. Initially, it's just a significant amount of work examining work processes and operations. It's a lot of meeting. It's a lot of agreeing on what the call type is, how a particular agency handles and processes a call. That's the bulk of the work up front, is deciding on best practices, policies that need to be implemented. It does provide increased situational awareness and visibility across all 3 cities, improved information sharing. One thing to highlight was initially when Palo Alto and Mountain View went live with the system, we merged our fire departments virtually, meaning that if there was a call close to the border, a Palo Alto engine might respond into Mountain View, or Mountain View might respond into our city if they were closer. That worked very well. I would say some political concerns came up a few years later as Palo Alto changed their deployment model and Mountain View chose to separate themselves. So we still, for example, on a structure fire or on a joint freeway response, we still will ring down those particular apparatus, but we follow it up with a phone call, just letting them know. And we no longer are able to, at will, grab each other's equipment. And the biggest piece is just, it takes work and commitment really to cooperate with other agencies. It's a lot of meetings. No changes can be made without vetting through the other 2 cities. And that's probably the harder part of consolidation. Then in 2016, we embarked upon a joint Motorola Vestas CPE. We contracted with Carousel Industries. Again, geodiversity, redundancy, shared costs. We have one shared operating platform and policy-based routing. And again, we were able to save money based on IT resources because Los Altos is being a smaller city. They don't have dedicated public safety IT, so we're able to help them out if we have different things that come up. We have 2 geodiverse hosts in our phone system. Currently, we operate off host A. If for some reason host A fails or we were to lose a building, we can operate off of host B. We proved this recently. Los Altos had to shut down and replace one of their switches over a holiday. So when they did that, they sent a dispatcher to Mountain View. They're able to log in, see exactly what they see in Los Altos, accept all their 911 calls there, and operate without the additional host, which is very valuable. So as far as cost, this we did strictly by call volume is how it was determined. So for this system, it cost about $800,000. You can see Palo Alto and Stanford have the larger population, so we paid $332, Mountain View $282, and then Los Altos $177,000 for the shared system. Okay, so joint CPE system, again, improved regional cooperation. We diversified our 911 camera trunks. So we have, like, some of Palo Alto's trunks reside in Mountain View and Los Altos. So if we were to lose our building, we would have some redundancy there. Again, with Los Altos and their recent switch, that's what happened. We lost a few of the 911 trunks, but Los Altos was still able to answer 911 calls while working in the city of Mountain View, even with a total power shutdown of their police department. The other thing is policy-based routing. If a 911 call rings for 45 seconds in one PSAP, it then starts to ring in a backup PSAP as well. The backup PSAP can answer the call, and we have policy-based ways of handling those calls. Either you can transfer it back, you can choose to take the call, you can supplement it. There's a bunch of different options that that hold true there. And then the other thing is we have failover queues. So if we do completely lose a PSAP, those calls will then automatically route to a backup PSAP. And once we see the failover queue, we can assume that that system is down. Again, joint operating platform, cost savings, and shared IT resources from the joint CPE system. And then radio system redundancy. We're all part of the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority, the SVRIA system. We have a shared radio system and resources. It's a Motorola Phase 2 TDMA system. We all maintain analog legacy backup systems, and the cities realize savings from that as far as sharing radio personnel from Palo Alto and from Mountain View. So takeaways, it's very valuable for the agencies as well as for the public, internal, external customers working with those agencies. You do realize some cost savings eventually, but agencies should plan upfront that there's going to be a lot of cost as far as like the cooperation, the combining of resources, shared IT resources, GIS, radio resources, very valuable for small to medium-sized agencies that don't have that in-house for cost savings. Communication is paramount. And then the other piece I just wanted to put in was that it's very important to pass along the value of the partnership as different people come through the system. in particular in Palo Alto, I'm probably one of the last legacy people. The majority of the people who put this into place have retired or gone on to other agencies. So it's very important to stress that and to stress the cooperation aspect and the value that each city realizes. And we just recently have selected a new CAD system, and we're going to be implementing the same next-gen CPE provider. So we found great value in the process. And happy to take any questions if there are any.
Let's open up to the board for any questions.
A question, actually a couple of questions. How long or how did it take you to get to kind of that breakover point where you felt like the cost ended up being recouped, so to speak, and that you're starting to see a benefit, or is it just too nebulous to be able to tell that? And then I have a follow-up question.
I would say probably 2 to 3 years into the project, because there's a lot of staff time at the beginning that has to be accounted for. But then as you slowly move down the path with the maintenance costs and everything like that, then I think you will see you could get over the hump, right? And then you'll start to realize more cost savings for the agencies.
From a personnel standpoint, thank you for that. From a personnel standpoint, and understand that in mergers, a lot of times there's a cultural identity thing that happens there that everybody's a little concerned about how that's going to go and how the people are going to blend. Did you find afterwards, and now that you're 3 years into it, or you're several years into it, beyond that, that actually went away and the people blended quite well? And about how long did that seem to take to really happen, or did it happen quickly?
Well, the beauty of this is that even though it's considered a virtual merger, all three of us retained our PSAPs. So we can assist each other if there's a need as such as like a staffing emergency, if there's a funeral, right? If there's any of those kind of services, we can easily go to the other PSAP and plug in, and just need to know that agency's specific policies and have a little bit of learning curve on that. But overall, I believe the working relationships between the three cities are very valuable, right? Both at the political level as well as the operational level. And it's very easy, for example, if we need like say a water tender, right? Or if we need some type of fire equipment, we can quickly look and say, oh, okay, Palo Alto has one available, and then just call and ask them. So operationally, I know Tablet Command, at least in the Bay Area, has become very popular, but it's very easy to be able to look at resources and see who has a K-9 available, who has a Spanish-speaking officer available, any of those needs. We can immediately query that and then call that agency, right? So it's eliminating the need to have a phone call for that.
Thank you.
I appreciate the presentation, Mark. I'm just curious, has there been much conversation when you have this type of model of actually consolidating the three PSAPs to one, utilizing technology in place, so having all the resources in one physical location?
There is, I would say that there's been some conversation, particularly in the Bay Area. I believe the historical trend has been each particular community wants to maintain their own PSAP, whether that's a comfort level with the public. Like I know, for example, in Los Altos, it's a very customer service oriented community, and I believe they've been hesitant to give up their local police department in the sense of, or at least in the dispatch services for citizens that come in, they're able to get a ticket signed off, or that really desire that face-to-face contact with an officer. Palo Alto is, as you well know, has built a new public safety building, and we did put in extra positions in our dispatch center. So if the desire in the future is to do a physical consolidation, that's an option. But at this point, no. Each city is liked the autonomy that they maintain, and they like the working relationship they have together.
But because of that model, it could be done relatively seamlessly, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Other comments, questions from the board? Well, I want to say hats off to you guys for what you did. I think that, consolidation has been a topic within 911 for quite some time. But for the reasons you mentioned, sometimes there has to be a hybrid. And I think what you guys have done is pretty impressive. I've never heard of, the policy-based rollover. Typically, it's, you got to flip a switch or whatnot. So I think that's great to see that kind of worked in. A question for Mr. Troxel is, I understand it, ultimately, part of NG 911 is to support things like this, correct?
Absolutely. Both in Next Gen Network, the voice and supplemental data, as well as our cloud CPE solution. It affords, getting away from the backroom equipment now allows us to bring centers together easier with less expense.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing nobody in the room online, if you can press the raise hand. And nobody online. So we'll move on to the next item, which, looking at time, how long would we need for the staffing study presentation?
So I think we can speak through the staffing study within a few minutes. If the board has questions, that may delay the action item. If the board is amenable, we can start that process, and if we find ourselves needing to re-agendize, we can move forward with moving it on to a future agenda.
So I'll just open it up. Is there a motion to continue it to a next meeting? We'll start with that first.
Yeah, I think this is a really important item. I mean, it's been a year in the making, and our dispatchers and our dispatch centers deserve our full attention on this and not a shortened time frame. So I'm sure you probably could give something comprehensive, but I would seek to push it so that we could give it the attention it deserves.
Okay, so we'll take that as a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. So if there's unanimous consent, is there anybody opposed to that? All right.
If I,
Oh, go ahead.
just a quick comment.
Yes.
While I completely agree, I also don't want to kick the can to where we never see it, because these agendas can get pretty heavy, and so I don't want to say this again, and then we never get to it, because it is important that we cover it. And I'm glad we're diving in, but we need to give it ample time.
So what I might recommend is, for order, because we're going to have the special meeting and then we'll have our next regular meeting. Perhaps at the next regular meeting, we can put this item right up front before the update, if that works out with your staff.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. For legislative update, we're going to skip that item. And then 988 update as well. We'll go ahead and skip that item. So with that, we'll open up to agenda items for future meetings. The next scheduled 911 Advisory Board meeting, regular meeting that is February 19th, 2025 at 10 a.m. The meeting notices have been sent out for the next calendar year. Samantha will be sending out the meeting notices and agendas when approved in draft meeting minutes for review. Do we have any additional topics for the next regular meeting from any board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. At this time, we'll take comments from the public. Is there anybody in the room that wants to make any comments? If you could step forward, turn the microphone on, and state your name and proceed.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Logan. I'm Executive Director of Heartland Communications down in San Diego County. I had no intention of speaking today, but a couple of topics came up that I would just like to, while we have a moment here, try and represent the thousands of dispatchers in the state of California here and the important role that we feel the 911 Advisory Board has. And Chief White, you did a great job of summarizing, the reason for the advisory board. And I just don't want to lose sight of that. There's been a lot of topic today, and I think the most frustrating thing I heard today, or the saddest thing I heard on behalf of the dispatchers, is that as there was topics coming up, it was, I need to call and check in with the dispatch centers. And from the dispatch perspective, we demand that. We expect you guys to be connected and know what's going on and not depend on OES to provide information of what it is. You guys have selected positions where you're representing all of the dispatchers here. And I understand a lot of you are police chiefs and fire chiefs, but the dispatchers deserve your time too. And they deserve for you guys to be invested and paying attention to what's going on. So on behalf of all the dispatchers, I just really would encourage you to lean into that and find ways to be connected with them a little bit more. It felt like maybe you weren't today by listening to some of the comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Are there any commenters online? If you could press the raise hand feature. All right, seeing none. Oh, one. If you could unmute, state your name and proceed.
Everyone, this is Jason Hertzer, and I'm the communications manager for the City of Orange Police Department. First of all, I want to say thank you to the 911 Advisory Board and to Cal OES. You guys have a often thankless job, and we are all very grateful to the hard work that you all put in to advancing what is an important need for the dispatcher community and for the citizens that we serve. The one comment I will make is earlier in the presentation, I heard, I don't know who said it, but it's absolutely true. There is a definite hesitation for PSAPs to migrate to a cloud CPE solution. And with Ms. Dwin's recent report, it did bring to light some and maybe exacerbate some of those hesitations. One of the comments I would like for the board to focus on is it's going to be important for Cal OES, the advisory board, to do what it can to instill confidence. And one way to do that is to maybe go into detail on, okay, for example, the NGA product was approved in the lab a couple years ago, or whatever that occurred, and now has to go back into the lab. So with the problems that have occurred within Tuolumne County and Desert Hot Springs, if you could communicate what changes and or thresholds are being made within the lab to then reapprove and make sure that these products work, because at the end of the day, the dispatchers just want to be able to provide the best service they can to the communities that we serve, and we want the stuff that we're using to work. So if the board can make that a priority to communicate that to the 911 members, I think that would go a long way to help restore that or build up that trust in knowing that this next gen 911 system is going to work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments online? Okay, before we close, I just want to acknowledge the new members that have joined the board. Thanks for your willingness to step up, especially in this time, and your immediate involvement in working through these issues. I think we have work ahead, but we've got the right people. And to all the people that have been involved with the projects, anytime there's issues, it can be disconcerting, but I think we all appreciate the efforts that have been put forth, and we'll certainly adjust as needed to move forward. So with that, I'd invite a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting is now closed out at 12:49. Thanks.